So this is a picture of my oldest son, Dallin, on Friday, September 13th, 2019. It was 5 years ago from today. He was up in Kamloops, Canada, about 4 hours from Vancouver. And he and his dear friend Bryant were T-boned by a Dodge Ram going about 80 miles an hour. Both of them sustained significant traumatic brain injuries just from the force of the impact. Both of them went into comas. And here's a picture of Dallin today, 5 years later. And both Dallin and I felt like today that we needed to express our gratitude to God and to all those who've helped him and our whole family during this journey. And so I'll just show a clip I recorded today of me sharing a little background, what happened, and then we'll cut right over to Dallin and what he recorded today, and his gratitude. And then I'll jump back in at the end with what I recorded about some of the miracles that we saw, and yeah, so here we go. Anyway, so of course my wife and I got on the first flight we could out of Tucson, Arizona, where we live, and got up there to the hospital. And when I first saw Dallin we went into the ICU and saw him in the bed there, tubes coming out of him, scrapes and other stuff on him, but just tube coming out of his side, out of his mouth. It was just, anyways, it was, I was completely overwhelmed. And I felt absolutely powerless. I'm his dad. My job to protect him, to look out for him, and there wasn't nothing I could do to help him. And just as I was about to just crumble, called a voice, I don't know, it came clearly, words into my mind and into my heart that said, Dallin was my son long before he was your son, and I know what I'm doing. And I know that message was from my Father in heaven, his Father in heaven. And so at that moment, I, even though I still felt personally completely powerless, there was this sense of just absolute peace, because I knew that his dad, his real dad, our Father in heaven, he had him. He was holding him, and that I could let go.
Hi, I'm Dallin. It's been exactly 5 years to the day since I was in a really bad car accident and suffered a traumatic brain injury. But as I sit here still, alive and well, this is me. I just want to thank everyone, every individual, every single person who has helped me along the way. Both, not just my family, but especially, to the medical professionals, both in Canada and in the United States, that have been able to help me get back mentally and physically, get back on track again. When in the accident, I found out, months later that my good friend Brian, he was in the passenger seat, that he passed away of his injuries. But I know that he's in a good place right now, because he was a very honorable person, and he loved serving others, and he was a great service to me as well. And but I just want to thank. I also would like to thank just all the medical professionals who have helped me, both in the United States and especially in Canada. because I got in the accident in Canada, and I think that God was looking out for me. He was aware of my needs, and it was Bryant's time to go, but it wasn't my time yet, I guess. And so I still need to be here, but I know that as long as I continue to work hard and I continue to serve others, that I'll be able to get to see my good friend Bryant on the other side. And had it not been for God, the power and wisdom of God, I would not have all the success that I've had, given that I have a brain injury. The fact that I was able to get my associate's degree in liberal arts, that's a miracle. Miracles have not ceased. And I know that I think God was behind everything, behind the medical work that was getting done and the inspiration. I know that all those medical professionals, not just with their experience, but also I feel that they were God inspired them to really help me to do something in a way that would get me back on where I need to be in my life. And so this is me, just for over these 5 years. This is me giving a huge big thank you to every person who has helped me along this 5-year journey of my essentially my new life since this brain injury. Most of all, I want to thank my Father in heaven and my Savior, Jesus Christ, who I have a picture of him right there in that picture. He completely he understood completely what it was like to go through all that trauma that I had gone through. And so he's been by my side, helping me and encouraging me over these past 5 years. And I know that I am a spiritual child of God, and I know that those who are watching, you guys are all children of God as well, and that if we continue to align our will with His, and continue to trust in Him and have faith in Him, that we'll be able to progress through our life, no matter what challenges we might face.
I was able to just focus and to not worry. I didn't worry anymore after that about Dallin. God could have prevented the accident. Had he left the place they were at a minute later, had to go to the bathroom, wouldn't have been there. Left a minute earlier. Anyway, it's in his hands, and that lesson has actually carried with me since then, that I really don't control anything, right? I maintain the illusion of control sometimes. That moment, all of that was shattered. And but the good news is it also is very freeing, because I have 4 children. I'm not here to I can't save my children. I can't, but He can. And I really can't mess up His plans, right? He has a plan for the salvation of each of my children, your children, for you, for me. And as Dallin's earthly dad, I can't mess up his heavenly dad's plan, and which brings some relief, because I don't know what I'm doing a lot of the time. And but then you may ask yourself, well, does that mean that what I do as a dad doesn't matter? No, it matters a lot. But it matters to me. do I choose to go on this journey with these amazing little people that aren't little people anymore? Dallin's 24 now. And God gives me the opportunity to go on that journey and to watch him perform the miracles. And if I try to follow God's will, to be able to participate in some of those and learn on the way. But in the end, God's going to get his job done. He's looking out for my children and your children. And so if you're a parent who's worried about their children, which I guess we all should, as long as you're doing your best, anyway, it just, it was a powerful lesson, and it changed the way I see a lot of things. And I still grab on to control or think that I have control, and then God gently reminds me, sometimes with me not so gently, because the only way I learn, no, the only thing I really control is my will, and whether I choose to follow God or to follow one of thousands of other ways. And I've followed those other ways, right? Thankfully, there's repentance, which is, I realize I've gotten off the path. Heavenly Father, please forgive me. And through the grace of Jesus Christ, that happens. And I get back on the path. And so my path looks a lot like this, but even like this. And, this accident over the past 5 years has sent ripples through my family's life. Lots of trials, lots of challenges, things I didn't expect coming, things were delayed in coming. Thought we kind of gotten through the hard stuff, and then, within the last year, other major trials came. But the amount of growth and joy that has come out of this, God knows what he's doing. And anyway, so back to the hospital there in Kamloops. Once I kind of had that message from God, he is my son, long before he was your son, and I know what I'm doing, I could focus again, and I could actually hear what the doctor was saying. I tuned in, and I asked, okay, well, when do you think he'll wake up? We got up here as fast as we could so we could be here when he woke up, and the doctor, I'm trying to remember his name, he said, no, I don't think you understand. You guys, seems like you're thinking in hours, maybe days. He said, you need to be thinking in weeks or months, right? And thankfully at the time, that's all he told us. With the severity of brain injury that he had, we found out later that normally they don't wake up, right? And if they do, they're pretty much non-functional most of the rest of their lives. So I'm kind of glad he didn't share that, especially for my wife's sake, because she hadn't gotten the same message I had gotten. Frankly, she's a lot stronger than I am, and I needed that message. Anyway, so then the doctor started explaining the extent of his injuries. And of course, there was the brain trauma, which basically came from not any direct impact to the head, but the bottom of the brain is basically anchored to the skull, and the top of the brain is anchored to the bottom of the brain via a bunch of soft tissue, and the force of the impact caused that to shear. And so when you looked at a scan of his brain, kind of a cross section, there's all these little dots everywhere, right? Little circles of varying sizes. And when the neurologist pointed those out later, he said, these are all pools of blood where the tissue has torn free. And so all of those neural networks in the brain, those are dead now. And so he said this is what they call a diffuse axiomal brain injury, which diffuse meaning spread out. Because normally if there's a brain injury and the head is hit, they can tell you based on the part of the brain that was hit, okay, their vision is going to be impaired or their motor skills. He said in this case, we can't tell you anything. We don't know what's going to work, what's not going to work. And so anyway, we're in the Kamloops hospital. They said, his diaphragm tore because of the force of the impact, and his intestines were pushed up partially into his chest cavity. So that was one problem. That was one of the tubes coming out of him. And then they said, but the thing that's most concerning is his aorta, so the main artery coming out of the heart. I guess it's like attached to the chest somehow. And again, the impact tore that loose. But what it did is it tore the wall of the aorta. I guess there's several layers of tissue there, to where there was just a thin layer left. And the aorta it's coming out of this pump. That's the way they described it, is like, it's kind of like a garden hose when it, if the outside, that green outside of it, when that splits and gets dry, and then there's like a bulge in that inner lining. It's like, that's kind of what it looks like. And he said this pretty much almost never happens. I think he may have said this the first time he'd ever seen it happen. This doctor in Kamloops, the ICU doc, he said normally it tears, the artery opens up, and they're dead within 30 seconds. So he's like, this is a miracle in and of itself, but it's super dangerous because we don't know how long that's going to hold in there. And he said the bigger problem is, normally when there's a brain injury, we will give them medicine to increase their blood pressure, to put more blood flow to the brain to help sustain it, heal it, prevent further damage. But he's like, that would certainly kill him, right? Because that pressure would go up and that would very likely rupture. So he's like, we need to get him to a hospital with a vascular surgeon. And so that was in Kelowna, about 2 hours away. So they had to transport him there. And we got there. Dr. Jeremy Harris, I think, was the name of the doctor, vascular surgeon, amazing. He went in and basically stuck a sleeve inside a pipe inside it. He said, basically, I'm a plumber for the heart, and he stuck this pipe or stent or something in there and was able to seal that up. So they were able to put in the blood pressure medications, bring up the pressure in his brain. And anyway, so that was good. The heart was stabilized. So that was another miracle in my opinion. Then they did the repair, pulled his intestines back down, sewed up the diaphragm. The next problem is that with the injury, a lot of times there becomes pressure on the brain. And when that happens is that pushes the brain down and pushes the brain stem down into where the spine is at. When that happens, that messes up all the motor stuff. And basically, if it pushes down there too much, you die. And the way you know that there's pressure on the brain is they do what they call the decelerate posturing, because this controls all the motor movements down here. Basically, their hands and arms, they will get rigid, and then they'll spin their hands out like this, out in front of them, rigid, just curling them out. And Dallin was doing that. What that means is there's pressure on the brain, and if that doesn't stop, they got to drill a hole in the skull, and I think they put some sort of a pressure valve in there or something that releases the pressure, and they can essentially test the pressure to see where it's at. And so the neurosurgeon, his name was Dr. Yavin, he came in, and it's amazing person, but his bedside manner in this case was kind of freaked us out. He comes up to Dallin, he's laying there, he gets right in his face, he's like, wake up, and he's yelling right in his face, and we're like, what? And then he gets his knuckles and he rubs, like pushes down. If you push down on your sternum here and just push really hard and rub, it hurts. And he's yelling at him, rubbing his sternum, and Dallin goes whoosh, and his arms just kind of flip out, that decelerate posturing, which means, so when you stimulate it, it wakes him up internally, even in the coma, I guess, and did that. And that says there's pressure on the brain. And so he said, normally, we just take him straight into surgery, but Dr. Bruce, Jennifer Bruce, she was the attending physician for the ICU. She actually also had brain training, which was a real blessing that she knew this stuff pretty well too. And she's like, let's wait. I don't want to drill a hole in his head, because there's about a 10% chance of death from that, mainly from infection. And so Dr. Yavin agreed. said, okay, I'll circle back in an hour. We'll check again. And he came back, did the same thing, still the decelerate posturing. And normally, I don't know, I think surgeons get paid by the surgery, right? And so you've got this guy that continues to circle back. He did it a third time, and I think maybe even a fourth time. And the third time, he's like, we need to do this. If, when I come back, if this is still happening, we got to rush him right into surgery. And so, of course, we're praying, help this work out the way you want it to, God. And, of course, we didn't want a hole drilled in his head. We didn't want that risk. We didn't want, anyway. So he came back, and Dr. Bruce agreed. Yeah, it's okay. We've given this a chance. Anyway, he came back, and I guess what has to happen in order for him to know that the brain pressure, the swelling has gone down enough is when they do that rubbing, instead of doing this, they basically, if things are okay, they will bring their hand across their midline like this. And Dallin, he has always been like the last minute guy. He isn't twisting, but he's not going the right direction either. And as the doctor, was getting up to walk away, Dallin went, and he literally just it was like if there was a midline drawn on the body, these fingers crossed it by like an inch. Right? It wasn't something, and like, okay, I guess he's okay. No need to drill a hole. So I'm so grateful that Dr. Yavin, if you ever watch this, thank you for waiting, for being patient, for making those rounds. Thank you, Dr. Bruce, for following the Spirit, giving that healing a chance to take place. So anyway, just filled with miracles. So he was in a coma. We stayed up there. That was a Friday. We skipped church on Sunday. Obviously, we were just there. We didn't know what was happening. But by the next Sunday, it's like there wasn't a lot we could do. He was in the coma, and so we're like, well, let's go to church. So we actually drove to Kamloops, 2 hours away, to be with the friends that he had there. And anyway, went to church. Of course, we turn off our phones when we're in church. And so when we came out, there was like 3 messages from the hospital on there, 3 missed calls. And so, of course, we call. Dr. Bruce, answers. They put us through to her, and she's like, don't worry about it. We made a decision, and everything's fine. And it was like, okay, what's going on? She's like, I will talk to you when you get here. So we drive the 2 hours, pretty concerned. And he, anyway, so we come in, and Dr. Bruce is like, she is like a big kid, right? Not childish, but childlike. She's just fun, light-hearted, just an amazing spirit about her. So we come in through the doors, and she sees us. She's like, wait. And she runs up and like covers my eyes. Another nurse comes over and covers Holly's eyes. And she's like, what's going on? She's like, just trust me. So she walks us down the hall back to where Dallin's room was. And she's like, okay. She takes her hand off her eyes and the nurse off of Holly's eyes. And there's Dallin in a kind of laid back wheelchair, and his eyes are open. And anyways, that was obviously a major thing. We were crying, and so we found out later, talking to the nurses, she was like, yeah, when he woke up, there was like multiple nurses that all came in because they rotate taking care of him. Dr. Bruce came in. So they said most everybody was crying, and they told us at that point, that's when they told us, well, when we see this kind of a brain injury, we don't see him wake up, right? And so, there was just anyway. So then we found out a little bit of the backstory of why she had called in church. She apparently, because he has a breathing tube, and apparently after, 9 or 10 days or something, it starts to cause the vocal cords to swell, and that can be dangerous, and it can cause permanent damage to them as well. And so I don't know what exactly had happened to, and it was 9 days at that point. But they're like, things are changing or swelling or something. We need to get that tube out of there. And so the problem is, if they what they need to do if you can't breathe through the tube is they have to perform a tracheotomy. So they got to basically put a slice in here between these little bones here. And then there ends up being a valve in there the rest of their life. Dallin is an amazing singer. He's a drummer. He's musical, and so, of course, they didn't know any of that. But normally they want to do the tracheotomy with the tube still in there because they can shine a light through the tube and see exactly where they're at. And so she was calling us to say, we'd been gone for quite a while, to see, hey, we need to actually get this tube out of there. And so normally, again, they will do the tracheotomy, but there's also a chance when you pull the tube out, they'll start breathing on their own. If they don't, they have to shove it back in, which causes a lot of trauma, and then they have to do the tracheotomy. And so, anyways, since she couldn't get a hold of us, she actually, the nurse that was in the room, and I'm trying to remember her name, just an amazing lady, Christian lady, we'd talked about, kind of our experience, and she had talked about how, the Lord was looking out for him and looking out for us, and it was nice to be reminded we're Christians, but with that pressure there, it was nice to have another. And anyway, so she was in the room when Dr. Bruce was talking about it, and Dr. Bruce asked her, what do you think, at least from what this nurse told us, what do you think we should do? And that's pretty rare, at least from what I've learned, doctors and nurses, right? And this nurse, she said, I prayed about it, and you need to pull it out. You'll breathe. And to her great credit, Dr. Bruce listened, right? There was no medical data that said that was going to happen. There was nothing. Just the word of a nurse who prayed about it. And I don't know if Dr. Bruce is religious or not, but she's definitely guided and impressionable from the Holy Spirit. And so they pulled the tube out, and he woke up. And not only, they weren't even expecting him to wake up. They pulled the tube out and see if the body figures out how to breathe. But not only that, he started breathing, and then he woke up. And first thing they do is try to see if there's any intelligence there. So they asked him his name, and he said, Dallin. And which is a huge good sign, right? He can speak. He remembers his name. And then, then he said, I need to pee. So again, another thing, he could say more words. And the nurse was like, of course he had a catheter in, the nurse was like, go ahead, it's all good. Anyways, so when we got back, there he was awake. And he could not really speak hardly. I mean, it was like, because his throat was so swollen. But anyway, that was one of many miracles. And I want to thank those doctors, the nurses. I don't remember everybody's names, but they were angels. So I just wanted to kind of close things out, bring this back to you, to all of us. Like Dallin said, that we're children of God. He is our loving Heavenly Father. And all of us go through trials. This happened to be one of ours, one of many. And what I do know is that our Father in heaven wants to hear from us. He is right there, ready, just as a dad, wanting to speak to us, wanting us to get to know him, but he won't force himself into our lives. And so I talk to him every night. That's how I've gotten through. There's been some significant trials throughout 2024 up to this point. Some of them for me even more painful than the actual accident, especially with God letting me know that he had Dallin, that he was going to take care of him. But I've learned more and more to just talk to my Father in heaven. And so I go out every night, and when I can, and when it's, I look up at the stars and and I just say Father, and I start talking. And you can do the same thing. He wants to hear from you. Whatever your trials are, whatever challenges are there, you are not alone in this. And just like Dallin said, Jesus experienced everything that we'll ever go through, all the suffering, all the pain, and he will be with us in this suffering, and he knows us perfectly. And so anyways, I know that's true, and I want you to know you're not alone, that you're loved by me, by my son, by God. You're one of our brothers or sisters that's watching this, and just reach out to him. If you've never prayed, or if it's been a long time, you're not sure how to do it, you just say God or say Father and start talking. Share with him what's in your heart. You don't have to, there is no right way to do it. The only thing that matters is that you're talking to him. And anyways, God bless you, and I'll share, I'll try and create more videos with clips from things we've learned, miracles that have happened, that sort of thing. So hang in there, whatever you're going through. All right, we'll see you.